about your Rolling Stone article. What's the real difference between bi and pansexual? Can you talk about that?
It's, I have different, everything is like, I have different thoughts on this than other people,
Okay.
obviously. So this doesn't mirror everyone's. I think there's confusion.
Yeah.
I think there's confusion even within the bisexual community and in the pansexual community about what these words mean. So the word pansexual was honestly birthed out of confusion of the word bisexual. Like the thing is, people assume that bi meant men and women. So they said, oh, it's not inclusive of non-binary people. And then I have certain people who are like, oh, it's not inclusive of trans people. And when I say that, I'm like, well, trans men are men and trans women are women. So if you're saying it's not inclusive of trans people, you're actually the one who's isolating them and not
Yeah.
doing this, not me.
Yeah.
If anything, you can make the argument that it's not inclusive of non-binary people. But the real truth is, we didn't have the understanding of gender when the word bisexual came out that we do now. We really only saw it, at least in the US and in the West, like as having these two genders, these two sexes. And so that's why we had the word bisexual. But it's like most bisexual people are attracted to all genders. It's not like they're only attracted to men and women, not binary people, but they
Right.
claim that label because that's the label that they know. So the way I differentiate it now, and there's kind of two different ways to do it, but the bisexual essentially means you're attracted to multiple genders, and that could be all genders. And pansexual means you're attracted to all genders. So you can be bisexual and pansexual, and there's some people who identify as both. But I honestly think what bothers me is there's kind of so much infighting among people who
Yeah.
literally have the same exact attractions.
Yeah.
And they're being like, oh, you're transphobic. And you're like, I'm not transphobic. Like, that's an insane thing. Like, I'm actually, like, as a bi man, I'm the one who openly dates trans women. I'm not a shitty
Right.
straight dude who only fucks you and then doesn't introduce you to family
Yeah.
or friends.
Right.
I actually validate you for your identity and who you are. And you really never hear a trans person or
Mm.
non-binary person saying bisexuality is transphobic or non-binary phobic. It's always like well-meaning cisgender people who are offended on
Yeah.
behalf of the community
Yeah.
that aren't offended themselves. Um, so it's like, I'm happy for you to identify however you want, but you like at the end of the day, I feel like there is some kind of needless. There's a lot of confusion. There's a lot of like infighting between the two groups when we're like 100% on the same team and there are much
Right.
larger issues going on. So it's definitely confusing. I've also heard recently, and this honestly makes more sense in terms of distinction, where bisexuality means you're attracted essentially to all genders, like you're attracted to masculinity, femininity, and almost pansexual means you're attracted to people regardless of gender. So it's like you don't
Okay.
necessarily versus I'm attracted like, and that kind of defines me. I'm attracted to gender. I just like all genders. Like versus
Mm.
it's not like, oh, I like you regardless of your gender. It's like, oh, I like the fact you're highly
Mm.
masculine. I like the fact you're highly feminine. I like the fact that you blend the two together. I actually love all of it, not I don't see you for it.
Right. Right.
Um, so it's a little bit confusing. I think there was a push for pansexuality to kind of become more mainstream like 10
Mm-hmm.
years ago. Like 10 to like the last like 2 years ago. And don't like these are, my speculation hypotheses. It's not like fact based here. But I'm seeing now more of a push for people almost going back to being bisexual, being like, we have a word, like we don't need
Right.
to change it. Um we don't need to move on so much here. So I think there's been a
Yeah.
push more recently where we're seeing more people use bi again as opposed to using pan, but all
It
of them
is
are
in the
valid.
letters. It is LGBTQ.
Yeah, but like every identity is valid. You can call yourself
Right.
bisexual, you can call yourself pansexual, whatever you want is fine. My focus on this is like letting people be the identity that they want.
Mm.
And especially when pan people come for bisexual people, I'm like, this is absolutely insane, you guys. Like, why are you doing this? So I think it's like you're allowed to be pan, you're allowed to be bi, you're allowed to be both, but just have the freedom to allow everyone else to do the same here.
Yeah, and there's lots of people for, those of you that are listening, my Love Bites fam, a recent survey shows 5.6% of Americans identify as LGBTQ. And then within that 5.6%, which is if we're thinking 330 million people, maybe about 18 million people, um, within that, 54.6%, so about half, identify as bisexual. Is that
Yeah,
interesting?
there are more bi people than there are like gay and
Yeah,
lesbians.
that's really interesting. But yet, like, you don't really hear about them like speaking up about
No,
bisexuality.
and there's so much. There's just it's often a very overlooked letter in the LGBTQ community. Although, like, we're starting to see more visibility. We're starting to have more stuff. We're starting to have more of our movement, and
Are
we
there
like just
famous
in the
bi
time that
characters in movies and TV shows?
we're starting to see more of it. There was literally a Hulu show called The Bisexual, and like it was about her
The
experiencing
bisexual.
being a bi woman. There was I think it's My Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. One of the guy comes out as that's the one where they sing, right?
Mm,
I think so. It's the singing show. Like one of the guys came out as bi and had this great song
mm.
dispelling stereotypes. In the new Gossip Girl, there's like
Mm.
incredible male bisexual visibility, which I am loving and here
Yeah.
for. So we're starting to see more and more of it. It's still less than other forms of visibility within the LGBTQ community, but we're starting to see more, and that's all we can ask for. You know, as long as we keep
Hmm.
going up in the right direction, I think we definitely are as a community and within activism, like going the right way,
Hmm.
and that's important, of course.